Zuko quickly breaks free, but Aang with the staff is borderline and because he hits this man with the most disrespectful two-piece combo I've ever seen.
Hey man, it's your boy Alex, and welcome back to another bang.
Today, we're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, and more specifically, when Sokka and Katara found Aang in a ball of ice and began their journey traveling with the Avatar. So sit back and relax and grab some popcorn, because without further ado, it's time to get unhinged. So we start off with Sokka and Katara trying to do some fishing, but it is not going very well, when suddenly they get caught in a current, and Sokka tries to navigate his way through, but they eventually crash their boat on a bunch of ice, and now they're completely stranded with no way back home, which leads to Katara waterbending out of anger. But little did she know, while she was chewing Sokka out, she cracks a giant iceberg behind them, which forces giant waves to push them away. But moments after the waves settle, they both notice something glowing beneath them, and as they step back, a giant glowing iceberg emerges from the water, and inside the iceberg is a giant creature and a mysterious boy. And when the boy opens his eyes, Katara rushes in to try and free him, and she begins to smack the iceberg until she eventually breaks through. But the light that the iceberg emitted turned into a beacon for some unwanted visitors, as Prince Zuko and his uncle Aro noticed the light and changed course towards that direction. And back at the iceberg, Aang finally emerges and then passes out. And the first thing he asks when he regains consciousness is if they can go penguin sledding. And then he gets up and asks them what's going on. And Sokka was like, bruh, you tell me. You were the one that just came out of a giant iceberg. But Aang and his premium baldy couldn't remember a single thing. And after hearing some loud ass snoring, he goes to wake up his giant sky bison, Appa. And after sneezing on Sokka, they all have a formal introduction where they find out that Aang is an airbender. And since they no longer have a boat, Aang offers them a ride back to their village. So they all hop on Appa and head that way. But unbeknownst to them, following closely behind is a banished prince with nothing to lose and a relentless drive to capture the Avatar. Because then, and only then, can he return home. And when we cut back to Aang, he's having a nightmare of the night that him and Appa crashed into the sea, which led to him entering the Avatar state, creating the iceberg, and preventing them from drowning. But then he's suddenly woken up by Katara, as she tells him that they made it back to their village. And as Aang greets everybody, Katara's grandmother tells Aang that they believe that all the airbenders had gone extinct. And they just brush over it like she didn't just say the word extinct. You know, like eradicated, squad wiped, no longer of this earth. But Aang doesn't even question it for real. He just hops on his air glider and flies around.
Hey bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this right here is a prime example of why you shouldn't aura farm after 100 years of accidental cryotherapy. Cause now look at you. You're over here tooted up in front of your crush. And while they're over there playing around, Zuko is practicing his firebending. And for what reason? Aang has no hair to burn off. So why don't we just put our flames down and... You know what? Never mind, big bruh. You got it. But anyways, back in the village, Aang spots a penguin and chases after it. And once they find the rest of them, they capture some and go penguin sledding. And they're having the time of their lives just riding around. But when they make it to the bottom of the slope, they come upon an old Fire Navy ship. Now fortunately, these two are smart enough to realize that this is very dangerous, and they should probably head back to the village. So there is no way they're actually gonna go. Why do I even try? So as these two are exploring the ship, Aang triggers a booby trap, which shoots out a flare and signals their exact location. And as they escape the ship, they are knowingly being tracked by Zuko, who now has the location of the Southern Water Tribe. As Aang and Katara return to the village, they're confronted by Sokka, who is understandably very upset since they let off a flare that could lead the firebenders straight to them. And Aang and Katara try to explain that it was an accident, but Sokka was not having it. He tells Aang that he's hereby banished from the village, and Katara says if he's banished, then so am I, because he's her only hope of getting to the North Pole and advancing her waterbending. But as they're about to leave, Sokka convinces her not to go. So she says her goodbyes to Aang as him and Appa leave the village. And now we fast forward to the villagers preparing their defense against the firebenders. Meanwhile, as Aang and Appa are hanging out, Aang notices a Fire Nation ship headed towards the village. And as he runs back to help out, we cut back to the villagers in straight chaos as the Fire Nation ship has crashed into their walls. And moments later, Prince Zuko makes his entrance. And Sokka tried to confront him, but he was quickly disposed of. And when Zuko asks the rest of the villagers where the Avatar is, Sokka tries to attack him again. And he ends up flying through the air and barely avoiding incineration. And look, bruh. I respect what you're doing. You gotta protect your village. But you can't keep rushing in with no plan, because now this man has broken your staff, snatched it from you, and proceeded to bonk you with it. But somehow, the boomerang that he launched earlier came back and smacked Zuko in the back of the head. And now this man is pissed off. But before he could burn them to a crisp, Aang slides in on the back of a penguin and sends Zuko flying in the air. And when he eventually gets up, Aang introduces himself as the Avatar. And everyone was like,
I beg your pardon?
And Zuko started to throw hands immediately. But in order to protect the villagers from getting hurt, Aang decided to stop fighting and surrender. And as they take him back to the Fire Nation, we fast forward to later in the day, where Sokka and Katara are preparing to go after him. And as their grandma sees them off, they suddenly see Appa in the distance. And as they fly off to rescue Aang, we cut to the Fire Nation ship, where Aang is being taken to his holding cell. But the moment they put the key in the door, Aang uses his breath to knock out 2 of the guards, jump to the surface, bust open a door, and start running through the ship. And I don't know where he expects to go, considering they're in the middle of the ocean. And to make it worse, he's not taking this serious at all. But then again, when you can do stuff like this with your hands tied behind your back, I wouldn't care that much either. And when he confronts another fire soldier, he uses their own helmet to cut his rope. And as he continues running around, he finally locates his staff. But when he walks in the room, he quickly realizes that it was a trap set by Zuko. And now he has to dodge flames at point blank range. And even though he's panicking, he is straight toying with bro. But when Zuko trips him, Aang grabs a nearby flag, wraps him up, and grabs his staff. But the fight is not over. Zuko quickly breaks free, but Aang with the staff is borderline because he hits this man with the most disrespectful 2-piece combo I've ever seen. And when Zuko looks back up, this man Aang is nowhere to be found. And when it comes to him trying to escape the ship, Zuko comes out of nowhere and drags him back down. But when Aang turns his head, he sees Katara, Sokka, and Appa. But the moment he gets distracted, Zuko forces him off the ship. And as he falls deeper into the ocean, he enters the Avatar state. As he waterbends out of the water, lands on the ship, and takes out Zuko and his soldiers. And as he begins to pass out, his new friends fly down to check in on him. But the battle is not over. As Katara freezes some more of the fire soldiers, they attempt to fly away on Appa, but Iroh and Zuko send a fire blast right at him. So Aang steps up and deflects it into the nearest glacier. And with the Fire Nation ship now being stuck in a bunch of ice, we fast forward to the gang riding on Appa, as they begin to plan out a route for their new adventure. As the gang continues on their journey, they finally arrive at the Southern Air Temple, and once they touch ground, Aang begins to show them around. And they eventually come across an ancient airbender game called Airball, and Sokka asks Aang to teach him how to play, but there is not a single lesson learned. One second the ball was in the air, and the next is getting pinged across multiple pillars right into Sokka's chest. And after Aang's victory, Sokka discovers a Fire Nation mask. And when Aang comes over, Katara decides to hide it from him. And with him still being completely oblivious to what happened over 100 years ago, they continue traveling through the temple until they eventually come across a statue of Aang's old master, Monk Gyatso. And 100 years ago, back when the Southern Air Temple was thriving, Aang just found out that he was going to be the next Avatar. And little buddy was stressed out, which is 100% valid, considering he was only 12 when they told him. But Gyatso told him not to worry, because all will be revealed in time. And then moments later, they both proceed to chunk cakes off the ledge and hit multiple monks down below. And as they admire their work, we cut back to present day, where Aang leads Katara and Sokka to the Air Temple Sanctuary. And apparently, someone's supposed to be waiting for him on the other side of the door. And after Sokka's failed attempt to open it, Aang proceeds to open the door with his airbending technique. And when they step inside, they enter a room full of statues that represent the past avatars. And Aang stands in front of one that seems oddly familiar, as he recognizes it to be Avatar Roku, who just so happens to be the avatar directly before him. But he wasn't just any old avatar, because he just so happened to be from the Fire Nation. But while they're observing the statue, someone suddenly enters the room behind them. And as they're about to hit it with a sneak attack, it turns out to just be a lemur. And Aang wants to make it his pet, but Sokka wants to eat it. So they both begin to chase it down. And after Aang trips Sokka, he falls it off a ledge. Meanwhile, after docking their ship for repairs, Zuko and Iroh are being pressed by General Zhao, because he found out that the Avatar is still alive and they let him get away. So now they're beefing to see who can catch the Avatar first. And Zhao gets under Zuko's skin, which leads to him proposing an Agni Kai, aka the Fire Nation's version of a 1v1. And while they prepare for their duel, we cut back to the Air Temple, where Aang is still chasing the lemur. But while he follows it, he discovers a room full of dead firebenders and his old master's corpse. And Sokka finds him and tries to calm him down. But it's already too late, because as he channels the Avatar state, all the statues begin to glow. And not just in the Air Temple, but other temples across the globe. as everyone is now realizing that the Avatar has returned. And after finding out what happened to his people, Aang is over here tweaking out. But now we come back to the Fire Nation, where the Agni Kai is about to begin. And the moment the gong rings out, Zuko decides to attack first. But Zhao's defense is just too solid. And when he counters back, he blasts Zuko to the ground. And with no hesitation, he tries to finish him off. But Zuko dodges at the last second and hits one of those moves from Stomp the Yard. And now he's got General Zhao backing up until he finally kicks him to the ground. But instead of finishing him off, he decides to show him mercy. And as he begins to walk away, Zhao tries to sneak his ass, but Iroh stops him and sits him back down. And with the duel officially over, Iroh and Zuko head back to their ship. But back at the Southern Air Temple, Aang is still crashing out, but Katara eventually calms him down. And now we fast forward to Aang saying goodbye to the Air Temple, but now without adding a new friend to the group, the lemur that he's now named Momo. And with their new addition to the team, they fly away on Appa as they say goodbye to their old home as they continue their journey. Alright, so that's it for today's video. But don't worry, we got some more bangers coming soon, so stay tuned for that. And once again, I appreciate everybody for watching. But before you go, please make sure to like and subscribe as well. It's your boy Atlas, and I'll catch you next time.